how did you end up crossing each other's paths, so to speak? And what was it that attracted you to him?
Well, obviously.
Yeah, same.
My goal was to try to make him blush in this whole thing.
He's a little red right now. His head's
I
down.
know, right?
Season 4 of the Game On Glio podcast is sponsored by GT MedTech and Gammatile Therapy. Learn more at gtmedtech.com. Season 4 is also sponsored by IMVAX, personalized whole tumor derived immunotherapy. Learn more at imvax.com. This episode is brought to you by Mimavax LLC. Learn more at mimavax.com. And by the Alliance Advisory Group. Learn more at allianceadvisorygroup.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and listening in on the Game on Glio podcast. I want to introduce Robert and Brooke Ham. Brooke is a mother of two and a divorcee. She's got 20 years as a hairstyling specialist from LA. She has found love again with her partner and husband, Robert, who is sitting next to her and joining us today. Robert is an award-winning director-writer. He's the owner and CEO of Ham R Productions. Robert has won 4 Emmys. He's been nominated for 6 others. In 2016, he was named the Pat Tillman Foundation Scholar and was honored in the 2023 Super Bowl as an honorary captain, which was pretty amazing. In 2022, Robert debuted his first feature documentary about his late wife's battle with cancer and their life journey called Made with Melanie. His second feature documentary, called Interpreters Wanted, is a documentary about Afghan interpreters, which won the Founders' Choice Award at the GI Film Festival and won Best Documentary at the Arizona International Film Festival. Robert is also an Army combat veteran and an alumni of USC. So, guys, thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, and for the gracious introductions to both of us. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. I am so thrilled to have you guys both here with us because today we're talking about having a second chance at love, having a second chance at life, really kind of diving in and having faith in a journey after life really throws some major curveballs in your direction. And with that, I want to start with you because one of the big hurdles that you had, and obviously you've had many in life, especially being a combat vet, but you also had a journey, a curveball that was thrown your way as a young spouse, a young couple with your late wife, Melanie. She was a YouTube sensation, which I find phenomenal. And I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but I am not a craft person or a knitting person at all. So I had no idea how skilled she was until I really dove into the work that she did. And she was so good at what I looked at some of her old videos and I was like, oh my God, I would totally wear that. I would absolutely want something like that, but I'm not a craft person. But she was absolutely phenomenal at it. She gained a huge following on YouTube. But then she had a major curveball thrown her way in, I think it was 2018. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So, we got married super young. We were both raised in, very Christian worldview, still Christian. I've evolved quite a bit since then though. And, right out of college, we got, and then, I was 18 when 9/11 happened and I had been considering the military a long time. And I joined a couple of years after we had gotten married, kind of not against her will, but she wasn't like super excited about it. Mm-hmm. So we just started our life really young. As soon as I went to the military too, we got pregnant, and I had been gone a lot. I had a lot of training. As soon as I finished my training, I went to Afghanistan for a year. And then after I got back, the next 3 years, I had been gone probably on average 4 months a year for the military. So on and off on deployments and trips and stuff with the military. And she had to build her own world. She was crafty and started to learn how to do all that kind of stuff. And when we were in Hawaii, I was gone so much And in the military, you don't really make a lot of money. We're barely making ends meet, like month to month. And so she spent her time trying to get onto YouTube. My sister was a big YouTuber, and her husband, they had
Okay.
by that time, we're talking 2016, my sister and her husband had 1 million plus followers.
Oh.
And so Melanie decided that she wanted to go onto YouTube, and it kind of took off in a lot of ways. She had a lot of time to kind of put that together while I was gone doing my thing. And it built, and it kept building until kind of interestingly, once she got her diagnosis in 2018, the business kind of took off even more because people were interested in her story. I think more so people were interested in how good she was at what she was doing. And
she was very good. We can't stress that enough, right? I mean, she was very, very good at what she did.
Yeah, and she was, and she had a personality on camera that was very, friendly for people. So so in 2018, it was just like, and so I made the film Made with Melanie, and it kind of tells all of this story.
Mm-hmm.
It becomes difficult, I guess, for any person that's lost someone to like go over all the details over and over again. And I think that was one way for me to kind of like share it and get it out there.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want more details, it's all there.
Yep.
But in 2018, basically it was like the worst case scenario. She felt a tumor in her by her kidney, and within 2 weeks we had radical surgery that extracted it, and we were told it was benign, but to keep an eye on it, which we did very aggressively. Mm-hmm. But by 2020, towards the end of 2020, it came back. It's a rare kidney sarcoma called epithelioid angiomyolipoma. Nobody on record had survived this cancer. So it was a dark path forward, but, Melanie fought it as hard as she could. And that's kind of the quick and dirty of all that.
Dirty of it. Yeah. So I'm curious, at the time that she'd gotten the diagnosis, because she was, and again, we're going to touch on this very briefly next, but you guys did about a little documentary about this journey with her. She was in her mid-30s, correct?
Yeah, she passed at 36.
At 36. Okay. And you guys have how many kids?
2.
2. Okay.
Yeah, she and I had 2 kids. Yeah.
Okay. So how did they say when she got this diagnosis? Because first of all, she felt this in her abdomen. So she felt some kind of lump or bump in her abdomen, and that was really the tumor that she was feeling.
Yes.
Which I didn't know you could even do. I thought breast cancer was the only one where you could really feel the tumors in and around the area, unless it was something very visible. So to be able to feel a kidney tumor surprises me, I guess, a little bit. Is this something that's hereditary or can be genetic?
So a couple of things. So we didn't know how fast this tumor is growing when she had found it. I think now in retrospect, it was the same cancer that had come back very aggressively. So in my opinion, and some doctors that we talked to, it seemed like that tumor actually grew pretty quickly, which is why she felt it and didn't notice it before. But we, at that time, when we first found that tumor, we thought it was a very slow growing tumor that had been taken a long time. But I think it was much. So yeah, I think that there is a rarity in feeling a tumor of that size. It is not genetic. Obviously, we keep an eye on. Well, let me back it up. It's genetic in that she kind of had this genetic predisposition for. I mean, who knows how long, right? Because there's outside factors that affect the cancer so we don't really know why.
What drove it?
Her.
Right?
What drove her? But as far as we know, it doesn't. It's not. It won't necessarily go to our kids. So that's, Yeah.
Okay. And the only reason I ask that question is because I'm going to get viewers and listeners say, oh my God, this is so rare and somebody's so young. What drives it? It's the same thing with brain cancer. Everybody wants to know, are there genetic factors? Is there a predisposition? Is there something that actually allows one person to get it over somebody else? So I always ask that question because you learn a lot as you go. And there's some rare cancers that you just don't hear a lot about. And this is one of those cases that this is not something you hear a lot about. When you made the documentary Made with Melanie, what drove that? And for everybody that's listening or watching, it's all over YouTube. It's very easy to find. I will have a link on the website under their bio for it so people can watch it as well. But what made you and Melanie decide that you wanted to do this, that you wanted to tell this story, you wanted to put this out there for everybody else to kind of see and witness what was going on with the two of you?
I guess looking back, there's always a lot of ironies when you're the survivor. One of them is that I was the one that always wanted to seek attention. I was the one that wanted to get my movies out there and get out and share my story and make a big difference. And Melanie was not like that at all. And it kind of like she stumbled on to having a wide audience when it wasn't what she was looking for. And she was blogging before even the cancer and was very active with her social media following. Big YouTube, big Instagram, big blog. And so she started blogging about, and we kind of did. I helped her write a lot of it because a lot of it was very personal, and we decided to be very personal very early with the goal of, we believe in hope, and we believe in love, and we believe in trying to be lights in this world in the dark situations. And I had been through a lot of dark stuff in the military as well, and post a lot of struggles and stuff. And that was our goal, is to, try to spread as much love and light as we could. And that was her goal. And that was our goal in the blog. And I film everything because I'm a filmmaker. I've been a filmmaker my whole life. I asked her if we could do it for the blogs. I filmed most of the film on my iPhone. When she got the diagnosis again, when it came back, and we were looking at some major surgeries and an unknown future, I wanted to capture her story on an interview. And that's what I do. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I've interviewed hundreds of people with a million different backgrounds. And so I captured her story, and then about a year on our anniversary, the following year, I showed her kind of like a rough draft of what the film would look like, and she was moved by it and wanted to do it. Of course, from then, we didn't know that there was a year left of her life, but I continued to film, and then it was part of after she had given me permission to do whatever she felt I needed to do after she had passed. So I kind of went all in as a part of my grief process to do this film. And then there's a lot of ways in which I think it helped me.
Okay. And that makes sense. If you think about it, in doing the podcast, when I first started this podcast, it's evolved since, but when I first started it, a lot of it was to honor Mike's memory, my late husband's memory, and what we had together, and to try to find some healing and purpose in doing that. And then it just kind of blew up and evolved and became its own entity. So I get that from that perspective. And it can be something very healing, and you can find purpose in pain. It's not always easy, but you can. Before we transition to Brooke, who is just sitting there very nice and quiet, I would love to find out, we've touched a little bit about on the video, and we know that you are a widower. When you decided to get back out there to date again, to kind of put yourself out there, or to even admit that you might want a companionship again, you might want a partner, you might want somebody else in this life, how hard was that? First of all, to admit, to say that, I might be ready for something. And then second of all, to actually do it and put yourself out there.
Yeah. Man, I guess I was married to Melanie for almost 16 years. She passed away 10 days before our 16th anniversary. We had a lot of ups and downs, like all marriages, really hard patches of of marriage when I was in the military and afterwards when I was really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot about who I didn't want to be as a husband and who I wanted to be as a husband. I also learned a lot in the last 2 years of being a caretaker of Melanie.
Mm-hmm.
The last 6 months were brutal. Her parents were a huge support system. My parents, we had a great support system. But I had to be there for all of the horrible things that cancer brings with death
Mm-hmm.
and dying.
Mm-hmm.
And, she was a wonderful woman and I loved her dearly. And she was a wonderful mom. And it was a horrible tragedy what we went through. And it was really hard for her. And she also died with a lot of grace and dignity and offered me all the words that a wife would need to leave a husband in order to try to move on.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted me to find love again. She wanted me to be happy and she wanted someone to help take care of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we were both very hopeful that we could beat it. We didn't, I don't even think she accepted it until like 3 weeks before, but we knew far before that she was going to die. So we
Mm-hmm.
lived as if she wasn't going to, and we tried as best as we could. But death came as a slow motion train, as opposed to somebody getting killed instantly and losing someone, as you know.
Yeah.
And so by time she had passed, I think it was so, I don't know at what point afterwards I decided like I need to start looking, but for me, and maybe this is my experience in death in the military and knowing a lot of guys who had passed, guys and gals who had passed and everything, there is such a finality in death that and in that death there was a finality of our love. Like I felt the end of it. I felt that it was gone forever, and it was. And the same thing for my kids and our family. And so I felt, for me and my story and what I had gone through, because I don't want to project how I did things onto anybody else and how they should do things, but I wanted to find love again, because to me, love was the thing that held me together. And I finally thought that maybe I had become the husband I always wanted to be with her towards the end. So I knew that I had a lot more to offer someone, and I was going to be a much better husband the second time around. So, and I think the kids needed. I think all those things were considerations. Took me probably a few months to like. Probably a few months I was starting to get on the apps and start talking with people, which ended up being, the apps are a complete disaster. And then I was also pouring myself into this film, so it was like hyper aware of what was happening. I was looking at all the happy memories and all the things, all the some bad memories too. I had to like really do a deep dive and be very like self-reflective about what my life was up to this point with this woman. So
it's interesting because you're talking about going through all the memories, putting the documentary together, realizing that you want to open your heart again. It's like you had these two things going on simultaneously. You have, I want to make room. I want to open my heart. I want to be a better man, a better husband. I've learned all this stuff about myself. And at the same time, I'm also going through all the memories that I had with Melanie. So there's like a duality that kind of existed in you even taking that step forward, which is enormous to say the least. And to be able to do both of those at the same time, I can imagine is not always easy.
No, and and it's a grief is like this ocean that is always moving. And sometimes you think you have your arms around it, and other times it just it just vanishes and hits you from the back again. There's no sometimes way of controlling it. And so the process for me is that I knew that these were the things that I had to do in order to fight my grief. I had to honor this woman's legacy and put it out there for the world to now own, because I do not own that story. But as far as Robert's concerned in his life, and if we're talking selfishly, I knew I was not going to completely heal until I found someone to share my life with again.
Interesting.
Which was not an easy search, not an easy thing. And the way that Brooke came to me, or we came to each other, was for Robert's world miraculous. I was not expecting to be hit by this woman, especially considering the field out there that I had been slowly getting out into. It's a disaster out there. So I knew once I found someone like Brooke. Hold on.
It's interesting because I've been slowly diving into that myself. And I can say that for as much as the apps want to tell you that they're great and wonderful and amazing, I hate them. I hate them with every fiber of my being. I have never felt so much anxiety and overwhelmedness as I did when I had those on. But every time I talk to a widow or widower, it's interesting because you're saying almost the same thing that a lot of these others have said, where they almost got to a breaking point where they're like, you know what, this is awful. This is horrible. I'm done. I'm not going to do this right now. And you're not even paying attention or looking. And then all of a sudden, bam, what you've wanted just kind of hits you in the face. It just kind of shows up when you didn't expect it to. And so with that, I'm going to transition over to your partner, Brooke. Because when you guys met, you're coming from a different place. You are not a widow, but you were a divorcee. And so you've had your own obstacles in your past with having a relationship that didn't work out. And so what was that like for you to actually be able to say, I want something again? I'd like to find something again, but my heart's been broken really badly. And how do I trust that I can actually do this? Because I can't imagine that was easy for you. And then on top of that, to get involved with somebody who lost their wife that they loved very much. What did that look like for you?
I think it's interesting because it's just, you can't really prepare for anything, really. That's what, a lot of what I've gone through has kind of shown or taught me, is that, like, life sometimes doesn't turn out the way that you thought it was going to, and how it's all going to work out. And so, I had my own kind of like journey with like grief and disappointment because of that, like looking back and being able to look at how my marriage didn't work out, the hurt that came with all of that, and the struggle after, and what to kind of do with all of that relationally too. Do I really want to like put myself out there again? There was a lot more fear, but I think that there was more faith in the belief of love that kind of like drove that for me, where I like really believe that I have some great examples in my life, my parents being one of them. My parents have just a sweet marriage, high school sweethearts, and I wanted that. I always think I really craved that, even from a young girl, and so I believed in love. I believed it was out there. I didn't want to give up on it, and I didn't want to. I also, coming from that point, I didn't want to become bitter. I knew that there was two roads I could take in life at that point of being disappointed. You can choose, to be bitter, or you can choose to like become not that.
To believe.
And I never wanted to succumb to bitterness. I wanted to always, believe that like there could be love and there could be a second chance at all of this. So,
which is really what this story is that we're telling. We're telling second chances, that everybody deserves a second chance. Everybody should be able to have a second chance, and we shouldn't give up hope on that. That a second chance can exist no matter what direction you're coming from. How did you and Robert meet? How did you end up crossing each other's paths, so to speak? And what was it that attracted you to him?
Well, obviously.
Yeah, same.
My goal was to try to make him blush in this whole thing.
He's a little red right now. His head's down.
It was kind of interesting how we met. We met through the old-fashioned way of friends, I think that was helpful for both of us in this situation. I think it was helpful for me personally. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my picking skills. I felt like I was settled in a place of like, I think I'm okay right now. It's like what you were saying earlier. It's like it kind of hits you unexpectedly. And I think for me, I was in the mindset also of being like, I don't really feel the need to put myself out there right now. Mm-hmm. Even though I did, I always thought eventually I'll like get there, but no, not today. And we had friends. We had a couple girlfriends that like told Robert about me, and I think for his perspective, you could say, the people that did introduce us, one of them was Melanie's best friend. So I think that I think there's a lot of that kind of helps, right? With like,
it helped
almost
the trust
like there was
factor.
trust. Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I did the apps and I'd go on dates, and you'd go on a first date with someone, and you have no idea who this person is outside of what they are advertising on their app about themselves, which is obviously like the best version of what they think they are.
Yeah.
And I'm a pretty good person reader, so I could like tell within the first, but I'm nice. So if I'm like 15, 20 minutes into a date, I'm like, this is not going well, I'd stick around for 2 to 3 hours because I'm just a nice guy. And I'm like, that, but I knew, I knew, I'm like, okay. What happened with, so yes, what Brooke, and interestingly, we had run through a lot of like, we grew up in very similar circles, but different circles, similar backgrounds, similar kind of like upbringing in the kind of the Christian world. Mm-hmm. We actually went to the same undergrad college. I ended up finishing, but Brooke was like, no, this is like, I'm out of here after the first year. So we must have passed right by each other. We had never known each other. She was on the PTA with Melanie. And they knew each other, not super well, but Brooke is a hairstylist and does hair with a lot of people, and she did Melanie's hair a couple times, and even Ashley's hair, which was Melanie's best friend, and I had been looking for someone that I felt had closer values to what I was looking for, and so I just been putting the feelers out there with some friends. And I got tickets to a Dave Matthews Band concert. And I'm like, I need a date for this Dave Matthews Band concert. So I called these women and I said, do you know anybody that will go on this date with me? And they're like, oh, we know someone who loves Dave Matthews. We'll talk. So they sent her a text and talked about it. And Brooke was like a little hesitant, but also busy working and didn't want to. So I took my best friend, Gavin. And it was not a romantic Dave Matthews Band concert like I was hoping. But that started leading to what was next, which was total blind date at Volcano. And she walked in, and I was like, oh, crap. This one's going to be trouble. So she was so pretty. Anyway, that was the beginning. And then we had a great long conversation, and we just really kicked it off. And then I don't think we have not, there's not been a day we haven't talked since then.
Yeah, talked every day. Yeah.
I think sometimes the universe does a really good job of putting something in your path when you need it. when you don't know exactly what it is you need or what you're looking for, but the universe just kind of knows for you. The fact that there was this weird link with Melanie that existed that you guys didn't even really know about. And then here comes Brooke, and she's exactly what you need at the time that you needed it, is just, I really firmly believe in that the universe has a funny way of giving you what you need, but not doing it in the time frame that you may want.
Yeah.
It just kind of
I
happens.
had a lot of walls going into it. And I think as we started to grow and started to fall in love, what Brooke was saying earlier about her faith and love is kind of also what led us in a lot of ways. Cause you also don't know if you're ever going to find love again. You don't know how it's going to be, or, and the quality of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a stigmatism around it too. I mean, I don't know what you think about this, but I think that you build up this, when you've lost a loved one, when you've lost a spouse, you kind of build this thing up that love is never going to feel like this. It's never going to feel like this a second time around. And so you kind of push yourself away from it because your brain wants to compare what you had to what might be out there, but your heart is just saying love is love. It's an infinite amount. There's an infinite amount of love. Love doesn't just run out, but our brain is hardwired. It's kind of the black box. And so you compare it, all it has is what you knew and not what could be. And so I think for a lot of people, they build this kind of stigmatism around the fact that you can't have love again after you've lost somebody because it's not going to be love. It's going to be something different. And I think that's kind of the journey in grief, is that you have to learn that it's going to be different, but that doesn't mean that it can't be something absolutely amazing and wonderful, and it can't still be love. It's going to be a little different than what you had, but it's still something profound and truthful, and it's going to be hard work no matter what, because relationships are hard work.
And I think that's kind of what both of us knew too coming into it. Like, we weren't naive. So it's like, it's fun at the beginning too, because it's new love and all the things that come with that. I think though, but what we knew how we were going to get deeper and that this could be a long lasting thing is how we both knew how hard marriage was. Yeah. We didn't go into it thinking anything other than that. I mean, I had a very realistic coming to like God moment about my own self and marriage and what I wanted to be and everything. And then obviously Brooke had her perspective on marriage and what not to do and the red flags and all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, and in some ways in all ways it's been like amazing and beautiful, but it comes with work. I mean, we work really hard at it. We prioritize our relationship. We prioritize our time together. We prioritize our fights if we need to. Like, we need to work. We need to make sure that we work on stuff and that there isn't. And there's a lot of things that you have to work through. But also, like, we said this a lot while we were dating. It's like, we're 40. Like, we know how to do some of this stuff. Like, we've been through a lot in life. Like, we can handle anything that comes our way, and that's, I think, the beauty of a good relationship. So,
well, I think the beauty too comes from like a different perspective now too on it all, a different perspective on love. Like, once you've lost it or it's gone from you, like there is a deeper appreciation that you have for a lot of things that maybe you took for granted beforehand in a previous relationship or whatever. You have this other kind of profound, intense learning experience that comes from the relationships that we had, previously, that, I do have a really deep appreciation for Robert and the things that he does, because of what I've come from. So yeah, it is different. And also it's like really good differently too, I think.
And I tried to scare her off a lot.
Yeah, we did. Well, we both had our walls, that's for sure.
I'm like,
I was going to say, those are walls.
Yeah,
those are definitely walls.
So many walls, and she did not quit on me.
So, Brooke, with that, I'm curious, what were the challenges for you? So stepping into this relationship with him as it progressed and moved along, what were the challenges for you in knowing that the memory of Melanie was always going to be there and making sure that that was honored, in the space of his life and his kids, but also having this relationship with you as somebody who hadn't walked through that experience? What came up for you? Like, what were challenges early on for you?
I think there was a few that we had to kind of work through and talk through, especially in the beginning when the relationship feels so vulnerable, between Robert and I. Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting too, because on the flip side, like when Robert and I first met, I watched Made with Melanie that first weekend, like after we had met. Oh, and wow. It gave me like a really profound type of an appreciation for Robert too, watching their journey together. And it actually made me more interested and actually wanted to pursue this more, because I saw a man that wasn't going to give up mm-hmm. on his wife, even in like the most difficult, hard situations. And that meant a lot to me. It said a lot about his character, the person that he is. And so, interesting enough, when we first started, that was very profound to me, and it meant a lot. And but as we kind of go along, and it's now becoming like we're becoming more of a relationship, there are, and I think a lot of that also because everyone, like Robert said earlier, mm-hmm. everyone has their own journey. So I think what I brought to the table in my journey was I felt very vulnerable in relationships. I felt mm-hmm. very scared. There was a lot of fear that came with it. Mm-hmm. I knew what it was like to be in love and think you're in love and have it go away in a relationship, and then have mm-hmm. it be a choice that someone leaves. That's scary. And now I'm in a relationship with someone who's a widow, and it's just trying to find that balance of what is my actual fear and what is actually truth. Mm. And because there is a lot of doubts that can be raised in my mind for my personally, as far as like Robert finding love again, and like what does that mean for us? Feeling mm-hmm. like, is this something that is a threat to my relationship with him, or is it not? Yeah. And I think that was kind of a battle for me, and it still can be at times. I do believe that as we build a strong relationship and as we have more time, those like mm-hmm. dissipate. But I feel like those were kind of some of the challenges, I believe. Mm-hmm.
That she's an amazingly humble and gracious and loving woman, and to come into such a complicated scenario with me and the kids too. I mean, we live in this very large house that's 2.5 acres in Los Angeles. It's kind of this rare find, and we bought it just less than about a year before Melanie had passed. Okay. And it had Melanie's imprint all over it, mm-hmm. and she also passed here, and a lot of complicated emotions, a lot of complicated things. You have the pictures everywhere, and you have the life, and you have the stuff and Brooke came in and just took it day to day. Like, mm-hmm. didn't ever try to force her agenda or what she wanted, but just let it kind of play out the way that she let me and the kids have a lot of time to work through. What are we going to do with some mm-hmm. of this stuff? Like going the aftermath. I mean, there were closets I didn't even look in.
Yep.
For months yep. and months, and it's like, and then you fast forward, and now Brooke is here, and she's like, what do you want to do with this? Should we do, and just her ability to like just graciously navigate all of these very difficult things and hard, and like when I'm having a bad day or a mm-hmm. grief day, she was just patient and loving towards me, And yeah, it came with confusing emotions and confusing things that we had to really talk about.
Yeah.
And we've had counseling, and we've talked about all of it. We just decided early on that nothing's off the table. Even if it's going to be really hard, we're going to talk about it. We're going to work through it.
You guys are touching on so many important things that I think are vital when it comes to working on a relationship, whether you've gone through a death or not. But you also just mentioned counseling. And so I do want to talk about that a little bit, because you guys went to counseling together before you even got married. I mean, this was something you guys did pretty early on, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, I've been doing counseling the whole time during cancer on my own.
Okay.
Which helped me a lot clear my mind about what I needed to do. Mm-hmm. For me, it's really good to have outside opinions on what, and I have a very strong will. So it's like, I'd argue with my therapist all the time. I'd be like, I'm not going to do that. But that other point is really good. So I think I knew what I needed, but it was really helpful to have someone also be like, and have a therapeutic relationship that knew me over the course of this time, that could see and also encourage me with like, no, I'm doing okay. Like the progress is being made. But I knew early on. Here's the other thing with what happened with Brooke and I. We've had a lot of problems with the communities that we have grown up with. Mm-hmm. We have felt a lot of rejection from those communities. During this process, we had a lot of judgment. Brooke, moved in with me before we got married, mm-hmm. and we tried to integrate the kids and all of this kind of stuff that we're trying to figure out. And we got a lot of weird projections. Melanie's story is out there, and when people discover her story, it's a brand new thing for them. Right. And so the thought of me being with someone else after you watch that movie for the first time can be a strange feeling for people that don't know anything about our life or are not in. And so we got a lot of weird outside projections. We got people from the community. And so I think in some ways, and we're still trying to figure out where we fit in different communities, we just kind of did our own thing. Okay. And so it was helpful to have someone like a counselor to have an outside perspective. That was kind of like.
Brooke, had you ever gone to counseling before, or was this new for you?
No, this was not new. I've been doing counseling or therapy since started high school and on and off through life. I'm a firm believer in it. I love, you find someone that's good. Mm-hmm. They can really help give you an outside perspective on mm-hmm. what you're going through, and tools. I'm a big believer in like gathering tools, because mm-hmm. I know that was one of the things that really attracted me to Robert too, is the belief that we should always be trying to evolve and become better. Like we become better. And so counseling, I feel like, falls into that. That's, it's a great tool to be had and used, and more so with a partner too, especially mm-hmm. since we were navigating a lot of complicated things. And mm-hmm. on top of it, blending a family is not easy at all. And it's kind of like once you start, you're all in. You're all in with this adventure. And so, if we can have help from somebody that has an outside perspective, I take it. And it helps also, I think, because I'm a firm believer, like with communication. That was the factor too for me with Robert, was like the fact that he was open, the mm-hmm. fact that you wanted to communicate everything. That's, that was really key.
I think that the one thing I want our listeners and viewers to really understand and take away is that what you're saying, what Robert's saying, the grief journey, it's nuanced. It's different for everybody. You have to go through, whether you're a divorcee, whether you're a widow, a widower, however that journey came about for you, it's different for every single individual. And so, yes, Melanie's story is out there. So is my late husband's story. It's everywhere. It's in magazines. It's in newspapers. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere. But that doesn't mean that people need to be careful on how they judge the story, because they're not in it. They might be hearing it, they might be witnessing it or viewing it, but they also have to remember that it doesn't matter how much time has passed or not passed. We all have to find a way to navigate our grief. And love really is powerful. And Brooke, you said it earlier that you didn't want to deny yourself love again. You wanted to believe that that exists, that that's out there, because it's important. This life doesn't work if we can't have some kind of love in this life. I mean, this life is hard enough as it is. And without love, it's almost near impossible. So, I want to make sure that everybody understands that no matter what their journey is or what they're going through, we have to be respectful of everybody else's journey and everybody else's story, because they're all very different, and we're all going to go through different ways of coping and dealing and understanding our grief journey. And it's very complicated, I mean, stepping into that role. But the fact that you guys, the communication, you've talked about it so many times in the last few minutes, and I can't stress enough how important communication is. It was something that Mike and I were very good at. We knew how to communicate very, very well, but it was a lot of work. You're not together for 20 years and doing it successfully without putting in a lot of effort and a lot of work. So, it's vital that you guys are doing this and that you guys believe in that. And you're an example of how much hard work it really does take in order to take a step forward, to say, yes, I still want love. I still want to have this, but it's not going to just fall into your lap. I've said this time and time and again, and hopefully Hallmark doesn't hate me, but this life is not a Hallmark movie. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's great to watch Christmas in July, and I love it and all, but it just doesn't work that way. It's just not all. It doesn't wrap up a nice tidy bow at the end of 2 hours. So, this is important.
Yeah, it is. And I think, when you throw the kids in as well, it adds a whole new factor to how complicated this has been for us, because it's like, I was super nervous about telling my kids. I kind of actually kept it from them for a long time. We had started dating in October of 2022, and then I got the thing to go to the Super Bowl, and I took my son to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And Brooke was super gracious with that, because she's like, no, you have to take your son. I don't think he would ever forgive you. But and at that point, they didn't even know who Brooke was, because I was waiting till after the Super Bowl. That's how I was so nervous, to tell Eli. And so after the Super Bowl, I'm like, okay. So, and both of my kids were like super excited and actually mildly frustrated that I hadn't told them earlier and that I was kind of hiding it. But also for myself, I was protecting myself. I wanted to make sure that I knew that this is someone I was going to be serious about to start bringing home to the kids. And then, but I think when I met her kids, that was one of my big fears too. I'm like, okay, I fall in love with this woman, but I have no idea who these kids are, how we're going to do this and everything. But I saw what an amazing mom she was, and how good kids were. And I was just like, geez, and now looking back, we added 2 rooms to the house. And so each kid has their own room now, and they just kind of fit together so beautifully, and they get along so well now. And now we both love each other's kids so much. And it's crazy. My son is 15, her son is 14, my daughter's 13, and her daughter's 12. And they just get along,
So I'm curious, you guys really Brady Bunched it. You really blended it. So how many kids do you have until you got 4 kids now together?
4 kids total.
4 kids total. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you want people to know? What have you guys taken out of this? What have you come away with in learning about this?
I think we both went on some very difficult journeys in life. Mm-hmm. We've both been through some real dark times personally. I had some stuff after the military where I was even suicidal. Had some major drinking problems and stuff, and I think there are mistakes made that you look at in life, and you're just like, regret feels like you can't run from it. Grief kind of feels that same way. It's like these dark beings and demons that follow you and haunt you and tell you that you're never going to be good enough. And when we both defeated these on our own, in our own way, and are still struggling. Like the day before I met Brooke was what I was still in dark despair. It was a different darkness than my post-war PTSD type of darkness. It was a despair darkness. It felt like a slow descent, but being open to hope and love and what is good in this world. And right now, when we look at the landscape of all the things that are horrible that are happening in this world that I have no control over, what I have control over is myself and the ability to keep moving and try to be better, and to try to give something to someone, to one person, to try to make her life better. And a lot of that stuff is in my own faith and my perspective of Jesus and the way that he saw people and the way that he saw individuals and how he poured love. That is the way that I want to be perceived in my life, as somebody who loves hard and tries to sacrifice and serve when he can. Because what else is there in life, I think,
Yeah, that's profound. What about you, Brooke?
After following that,
I just
nice. Good. I think for me, for other people, is just like radical acceptance of where we're at, kind of a thing. Like, all emotions aren't bad either. They're not something to be afraid of, I think. Because grief can be very scary, but that grief also means, like, what? That there was love there. Disappointment meant we had hope somewhere. And so it's just kind of radical acceptance as far as, like, where you're at and taking each day at a time. I totally believe that, and I love everything that you just said, too.
All the time. This last year has proven, like, we can do this.
Yeah. And I live in fear that it kind of cripples me from being able to live life.
Yeah.
Well, that's what fear is, isn't it? I mean, fear is, it's crippling, and there's a difference. Fear is your body's way of saying something is imminent, something's about to happen, something's dangerous, where anxiety is the worry of what if. It's our brain what ifing, the life circumstances. So I think that's really important that you mention that you say that. But I do want to turn to something fun before we wrap up here. I would love to know what each of you think about each other. What makes you smile? When you think of Brooke, and Brooke, when you think of Robert, what puts the biggest smile on your face?
A lot of things for me.
So many.
I know. We have a lot of fun together, too. It's we're very similar in a lot of things, have very similar interests. Same part of the thing that I love, too, is just our sense of humor. We think that we're the funniest people in the room, but it's also just the two of us.
Usually just the two of us, but we think
but we're hilarious.
We're so funny.
He makes me laugh. She makes me laugh.
And not many people make me laugh. She makes me laugh. She makes me smile in a lot of the ways that she is.
It's brought a lot of joy in my life.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
laughter is. I think that that phrase "laughter is the best medicine." I mean, I can't even imagine. laughter means everything, and it just lifts up everything about you. So the fact that you guys can sit there and, I mean, and when you guys were just talking about each other, your faces just completely light up. I mean, like from ear to ear, like it changes your whole demeanor. So you can tell that there's a lot of love and a lot of laughter there.
Yeah, we've had, a lot of adventures together, and we have a lot of good memories over it. And I think that was one of the other challenging things too. It's just like when you come from a lifetime of memories, I think what's challenging too in a new relationship is like, well, we don't have those memories. And it's like, so what we decided was like, we're going to make a lot of memories. We're going to be very purposeful with each other. We're going to be purposeful with our children. And we're going to just try to have a good time for what that means to us. And, try to figure this out because it's not easy. Finances and like moving in and kids stuff and 4 kids and 3 schools, and I own a business and she works hard, and it's like we're going at 100 miles per hour, and also just we close the door and say, kids, you guys got that side of the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I am so grateful that you guys took the time to be with us and to share your story and to share your love and the journey and what this looks like. It's important that we share these stories, and that we show, because life is hard. Life never promised it was going to be easy, but there is beauty in it, and we have to be able to search for that beauty. Otherwise, we're just asking to live a miserable life, and there's no reason to do that. And you guys are examples of that, of, even when you get knocked down, even when life can be really hard, there's a way to find beauty again. There's a way to search for goodness outside of all of that, and to kind of really be a part of that. And you guys are doing a great job, and it's just amazing to see it. And it gives me hope. And I'm sure it gives a lot of other people hope to hear the story and to see it, that there can be such beauty and laughter and such love, even when you've had such journeys.
There's a lot of good people that we've been inspired by. I mean, we listened to your podcast several times before we came on here, and what you doing and honoring Mike. And also, like, I'm involved in the Pat Tillman scholar community, and there's a lot that surrounds that community with Pat Tillman's death in 2004 and his wife Marie starting the foundation, and she had to live with that for a long time too, and then got remarried and has kids. And I read her book about what she wrote, a book about Pat, and then having to move on, and she was a huge inspiration. And there's people out there. We're so focused with all the negative and the people that are taking up all of the energy of our society that are not living in a positive, light-filled way. But when you search, and now with the internet and podcasts and all the things that people are out there doing, it's like, man, we're finding some really special people out there, and people are just trying to live good lives, and we could be inspired by those people, and those are the kind of people. And so I super appreciate this podcast and having us on here, and thank you for giving us this time to speak, and thanks for bringing Brooke on. I'm so glad that we got to share our story too.
Brooke, you did a great job.
You did so good.
I really appreciate it, and I'm so grateful to have had you guys on. I appreciate all the work that you do, the documentaries that you do. I know that we'll stay in touch. Your story is a story of strength and hope, and it's inspiring. It's inspiring to me. So I really appreciate both of you guys coming on so much. And Brooke, thank you so much for doing this. You guys did wonderfully. You guys are a beautiful couple. For everybody that's watching and listening, thank you so much for joining in.